Rick Henderson, first edition.
He's expecting you. This way.
Rick Henderson. I've been looking forward to this.
As have I, Mr. Alexander.
Don't let's stand on ceremony. Call me Jack.
Rick.
Make yourself comfortable, Rick. I'll be right with you. I admire your work. Real journalism.
Thanks. I thought we'd start with your thoughts on the White House attack, then discuss your tenure as director of the FBI, post-retirement reflections, whatever, and...
Rick.
Or if you want to sound off on politics...
Rick, my apologies. This interview about me is just a cover for a more sensitive story. I'm sorry to have lured you here under false pretenses, but I couldn't risk a leak.
I'm not sure I understand.
Don't worry. It's the scoop of the century.
If I had a dime for every time I heard that...
Listen, please. It begins with a little incident at a vineyard in Chile that caught my eye some time ago. This was a family business. Fernando Delgado and his son Manuel. Well-liked, hard-working men. Have a look at the folder.
And welcome to part 2 of Hitman Blood Money, where our next two targets, Don Fernando and Manuel Delgado, will be meeting their ends, as long as another mission afterwards involving a certain performance that will be interrupting. The reason why I'm doing 2 parts today, and don't expect this again in the future, but the reason why I'm doing 2 parts today is so then I can actually have a part showing Hitman Blood Money in its fashion kind of thing, to show how it works, as our 2 targets, to Don himself and his son Manuel, meet and head off to their usual spots. This first mission, well, first proper mission, called A Vintage Year, is incredibly short if you know what you're doing, and I'm going to show how. The first things first is the coin, as I mentioned last part, is legendary. The coin is your most powerful weapon, and I'm going to show how. This is a trespassing area. Targets across the whole game have an awful habit of chasing you even when you leave trespassing zones, while security guards usually don't. So using that, you can lure our first target, Manuel, to this lovely cliff edge in the middle of nowhere, where he can have a very unfortunate accident. How you doing, mate? There you go. And that tick at the top of the screen means an objective complete, aka one of our 2 targets is dead. But now we've got a rather long run, because we've got to circle around the entirety of this building to get around to the other side, where there's one lone guard that we're going to sedate, so we can use it as a disguise to get into the building. Remember, to get Silent Assassin on Expert or higher, we need to leave with our suit, so remember that this is here and don't leave it. But because this isn't a trespassing area, this is across the whole series. If you're not trespassing, your footsteps are partially muffled. It's just an odd thing in the game, so you can just run straight up to him and sedate him without having to be stealthy, because you're not trespassing. It's only after we jump over this rule we're technically trespassing, but our disguise will allow us to get through no problems. No one will recognise us or what we're doing. The only suspicion we've raised, which is that meter of the exclamation mark in the bottom left, is a basic level suspicion you always raise by running. However, you're going to see me run all the time regardless, because no matter what, running will never raise enough suspicion to damage Silent Assassin. And that's just a rule of this game, full stop. It's thankfully something that they changed, because the older games used to really goddamn punish you for getting caught running. But no, in this one they made it so your suspicion will always remain in the green area regardless of how much you run. So never worry about your disguise getting blown, or as I said, having your cover blown, which will affect Silent Assassin. And there we go, there's our second target. You just climb up the pole, go through the window and poison the dude, and he's out of the picture, and we can get our suit and start planning our escape. Now both our targets are dead, which will involve us climbing down this cliffside to get to a plane. Alternatively, you could enter through the wine cellar, but getting a suit only through the wine cellar is unlikely. But whilst we're running down there, let's look at another approach you can do with that second target. After sedating that guard, instead of taking his costume, just take your trusty mine. Because of where the Don is positioned, you can actually throw the mine straight into his windowsill from here. pull out your detonator, whip it out, blow him sky high, and then head on your way back down the cliff. However, you do run the risk of the body being found. If you're lucky, his body will land somewhere that it won't be found, but there's a good chance the explosion will lure people in, and if his body lands in a bad spot, the body will be found, and it's not an accident, he was blown to smithereens. Meaning you're not getting silent assassin, you'll have a body found marked against you. But if you can get away with it, absolutely go for it. It's a really fun and quick way of dealing with that target. It's just there's an element of luck involved, which is why I didn't use it. It's my main strategy. But just like that, we've already escaped the level, and Vintage Year is done. I'm so happy that's the first level of the game, because it's a proper tutorial. You don't need whatever Death of the Showman was trying to do. You get a real good feel for what the game's trying to do out of that alone. And you get a ratings bonus as we lock in our silent assassin.
The scoop of the century is a couple of wine guys getting whacked in Chile?
It wasn't the victims that caught my eye. It was their killer. I believed it was Mr. 47.
The bald killer clone? Come on, Jack. He's an urban legend. Even the CIA and your own FBI say he doesn't exist.
We say a lot of things, Rick. It's part of the job. Delgado was a very successful man. Successful men in that part of the world tend to be, well, call it security conscious. Not many people could have done this thing solo.
So you went running after a myth?
Myth? No. It merely caught my attention. One of my CIA friends was also intrigued. The opera incident heightened our curiosity. Have a look.
Time to go to the opera as we kill Alvaro Duvalde and Richard Delahunt in the mission named Curtains Down. Kruger Schmidt's shop now should be more available to you. Every 2 missions starting from this point onwards will add new things for you to upgrade of your weaponry or your miscellaneous equipment. Throughout the game you'll only be seeing me upgrade my silver ballers and the miscellaneous equipment. I won't be upgrading anything else because it's either not a part of my strategy or are better left untouched, like the SMG Tactical for instance. The volume of its weaponry can be used as a great distraction, so it's always worth not keeping it suppressed. Anyhow, our first port of call is getting a worthy disguise that will allow us to get as much access to this building as possible, as our default will only get us so far as the entrance. Waiting in the toilet nearby, you will eventually see this maintenance man walk in on his own. As soon as you get the opportunity, jump on him with your sedative. If you're close enough to anything in the scenery, it will shrink down the animation of taking him out, as just the game's way of not letting anyone clip through anything. It's the same with killing. If you're too close to another object, 47 will just snap their neck instead of strangling them. Close the lid. Thank you. And now we're going to be heading through the door, down these steps, and around the side to work our way quickly into the basement so we can get around, eventually to a cellar. However, we are on a partial time limit because there's an opera rehearsal going on whilst we're doing this. So we need to book our way back up these stairs and around, so now we're in the main space without causing any alarm. Going through these main doors here will eventually lead to these set of stairs going up to a ceiling piece where a beam is only loosely held by one string. Putting a mine on it would be our best way to go, because although we could easily shoot it down, getting the positioning to shoot it down is way too dangerous on our positioning and we risk blowing our cover by doing so. So placing a mine on it will allow us to have an easier getaway without leaving ourselves open whilst dropping the piece on it. The reason why we're in such a rush is because the opera in question has a climax piece where in the performance one of them is shot. That one being shot is our target, and although he'll be shot with a fake gun, we're gonna shoot him with a real gun. And even though, yes, we have murdered the man in cold blood in front of everyone, because we'll time it with the fake gun going off, the game will register it as an accident, because the game will think, and everyone there watching will think they accidentally put a real gun in place. So we're just gonna sit there, and don't worry, no one can see a laser sight, and wait for the crescendo of the performance, and just blow his head off as the real gun goes off. And now you only have so much time to get into a better position, because now Richard Delahunt is dead for all his many crimes that he's got away with. The trafficker himself is going to notice his primary customer and closest friend is dead. So he's going to be on the move, and he's going to go want to investigate the scene. So we can use that to our advantage. If you head over towards this direction, although there will be a security officer over here, he won't hang around, he'll move. Linger around long enough, eventually he'll go away, and then it's just a matter of keeping an eye on our other targets until he moves into the position. There he is, realising his friend's dead, and booking it off to get straight to the scene to find out what's actually gone on. So we're going to wait for our dear security officer to move on. Sit here quite nicely so we're as close as we possibly can be to our mine, since the detonator only has so much range, and wait wonderfully for our target to sit rather nicely, perfectly under our props of destruction. And there he is, perfectly lined up for the set to fall upon him. And there they go, both are dead, both on accidents. So regardless of who finds their bodies, neither of them will affect our rating. Now it's just a matter of getting our suit back, which is in the bathroom here. Just make sure no one follows you in. If anyone sees you change costume, it will count as a cover blown. And then when you're ready, leave. And just like that, your 2 missions done, and it's only been 13 minutes. This little cutscene of a police officer spotting 47 going to follow is actually what leads into a different Hitman game, the previous one, Contracts. But I'll get more into that if we ever cover Hitman Contracts for the channel, which I'd like to if they ever release it on PS4. But that should be your silent assassin. Next time on Hitman Blood Money, we need to rescue an old friend and do what's widely known by the community as the best mission in the game. But before we go, I want to show you a nice little Easter egg that you can find in Curtains Down. Whilst we was on our way through, you might have noticed we ran through a room with 3 rats circling around. Deciding to kill all 3 of them for no reason other than you're a bit of a bastard will result in a keycard coming into existence at complete randomness called the Rat Club keycard, which reads, "This funny looking keycard grants access to the Rat Club, whatever that is." Well, Agent 47, let me show you what that is. If you proceed back up the stairs as if you was heading towards the main path that I showed you throughout the video, making sure to go through the rooms, instead of going through that door and going up to the roof, carry on going to this fire exit over here. Follow the stairs up through here, and you'll eventually find this very run-down, beat-up old door that the keycard fits in nicely to, finding what's possibly one of the most bizarre Easter eggs in the game, the Rat Club. And yeah, this is insane, this is ridiculous, and there's only one thing that I can reasonably see we should do.